Okay, everyone. So the last part of this, I'm going to go over Japan and, of course, the Koreas. And, of course, Japan is a cultural icon around the world. You can clearly see, again, even our popular culture elements here, like Mr. Sparkle with The Simpsons. And, of course, Hank Hill's half-brother is also from Japan. Of course, let's not forget Nintendo. Okay? So a little bit about ancient Japan, okay? Shintoism really shaped Japanese culture for centuries, okay? And also the samurai. Again, if you've seen the movie Last Samurai, when they're talking about, how they are a warrior class spreading the emperor's word, wars to keep the emperor there, that is true, okay? For a long time, though, they also viewed people who are not ethnically Japanese as foreign outcasts. Okay, that's why it took a while for the United States, United Kingdom to actually trade with Japan and do contact with Japan. Okay, that was during the Meiji Restoration. But you can definitely see here that Shintoism is definitely an important part of Japanese culture, okay, and of course Japanese society, okay. So then, fast forwarding to the Meiji Restoration, okay, what it did is it helped industrialize Japan. It helped actually Japan, really become an economic power that we know of today. The British were the huge influences in it. Again, if you've seen the movie Last Samurai, that was true. Okay, you had a lot of the British influence, and you also had the influences from the United States. But again, the United Kingdom was more. Okay, now they didn't replace traditions of the emperor being divine, or the council, or the samurai. Although again, a lot of samurai did not like the fact of modernization, because again they wanted the lords in that wanted to be in control of the villages, but it really decreased after World War II. Okay, so again, if you've seen the Emperor with Douglas MacArthur and the Emperor of Japan, of course that's very true, where his importance decreased. I do want to show you some videos that you should most likely watch here. Okay, I will go ahead and I'll show you that here right now. Again, I do apologize. Okay, let me go ahead and get you the right ones here. So again, okay, I do apologize for that. Seems like I did that during even our class sessions, okay? So again, type in my name, geography, into YouTube, and some of it's going to be from what you remember, okay? I would say go to, okay, right here. This really shows, again, ancient Japan and modern Japan from The Last Samurai. Watch the clips here from The Last Samurai. I even have one on sumo wrestling. That's more, right in those areas. This one I'll tell you when to watch it. It's actually for your exam, so I'll show you when to watch that here. Watch those videos first before going into the next slide, so I'll pause it here. Okay. Japan, after World War II, was relatively poor. You have to remember, a lot of their industry was destroyed. They didn't have the factories, okay? I mean, the companies were there, like Toyota, Mitsubishi, and that. However, it was because of Douglas MacArthur, General Douglas MacArthur, and also, investments in aid to Japan from the United States. I always say that Japan was a temporary enemy of the United States during World War II. This is because, this is going a little bit of a historical aspect. World War II was a civil war with industrialized countries. You have to remember, Soviet Union, United States, United Kingdom, Germany, and Italy were all industrialized at the time. The question is which ideology was going to, rule the world. Okay, that's more for a history class, so I don't want to step on toes of my history colleagues. But just know that that's why it was relatively poor, and then it grew. Rapidly during the 1950s and 60s, because again we helped them out. Once again, an ally, especially during the Cold War, because remember, Japan was right there by the Soviet Union and North Korea. And so what Japan did is they diversified. They took companies like Toyota, Honda, Mitsubishi, started, doing automobile making, and then later on smaller machines. Again, there's like Honda tractors out there, and also, Suzuki motorcycles. That's also Japanese. And then later on in the 70s and 80s, moving into electronics. Of course, if you recognize this person, that is Shigeru Miyamoto. He, of course, is credited with making Nintendo popular, making a lot of your Nintendo games, okay? And I actually know somebody that saw Shigeru Miyamoto from a distance when they were at a conference, but, weren't able to, unfortunately, shake his hand or get his autograph. But they said he's a pretty fun guy when he gives presentations, okay? Who does it here, he has a translator, but again, it's just such a great presentation with Shigeru Miyamoto. It's pretty inspirational, too, Shigeru Miyamoto. So again, I know a lot of people think of video games. Again, if you like your modern video games, think Japan, okay? So Japan also became wealthy from just-in-time manufacturing. And I'm going to use Toyota as an example because they're probably one of the well-known Japanese companies, okay? What Japan did is they decided, instead of doing what a lot of companies do, is where they take in raw materials and and they store it in warehouses and then bring it out as they need. A lot of Japanese companies like Toyota and Honda said, well, wait a minute, we can save money, don't store them, just get the materials here, get them on the factory floor, and we can create the products that day and have them shipped out that same day. So what it did is that for Toyota, for instance, instead of storing a bunch of tires and wheels, they would ship them to the factory that day, assemble the Toyota cars and trucks that day, and then ship it out that same day. I mean, you can only imagine how much that saved on inventory. Hence, that's why I called, just-in-time manufacturing, okay? There is a big problem, though, within Japan. It is an aging population, okay? Japan does have a huge aging population, okay? There are a lot of couples that are having one children, and a lot of areas are having no children, particularly in northern Japan like Hokkaido, okay? So you need to watch this video, okay? And again, I'll show it to you right here from the YouTube. This video right here will be part of your exam question, okay? And make sure you watch it. This is a very serious dilemma Japan is facing now, okay? They are an older population, okay? I mean, their average age is in the upper 40s, almost near 50 in some areas like Hokkaido and some of the rural areas, okay? Japan is in stage 5, okay? They are in population decline. This video really demonstrates the problem of population decline, okay? I know we've talked about overpopulation, but there's some areas in Japan now that are underpopulated, okay? And remember, if you're underpopulated, how are you going to have workers? How are you going to improve the quality of life in that area? In places like Hokkaido in northern Japan, or even some of the islands, okay? So make sure you watch this video, not just because, yes, it's for your exam, but understand the gravity of the situation in Japan. This is the current crisis faced in Japan, and Prime Minister Abe, he's done incentives in that, but people are saying, hey, it's not enough, there needs to be more done. So this is a really serious problem that Japan is facing, okay? And the question is, can they solve it? Or is it too late? Is the horse already out of the barn, So go ahead and watch the video and make sure you answer the question for the exam. Then we'll go into the Koreas. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you really understand the gravity of the situation in Japan, because this is a big problem. I would say one of my colleagues here at Ames, he actually taught in Japan, worked in Japan, and his wife is from Japan. He was telling me that, they actually is pretty serious. They actually had to shut down schools in Japan because they don't have enough students, or they've had to move teachers to other areas. So that's another problem there too. And again, it's the gravity of the situation, okay? So hopefully you understand just how, dire the situation is right now in Japan, okay? So for Mongolia, this is a very not so densely populated country, okay? There is a lot of seasonal movement. You have a lot of movement between the mountains and the valleyways. So what happened is that during the summer, you have pastoral farmers there in the mountains because it's cooler. And then during the winter, during the winter months, during the valleys, because it's warmer. Okay, so herding is pretty big here within Mongolia. Okay, and it's very rural because again, it's very arid there, low population density. So again, you don't have a lot of settlement here within Mongolia. Now the Koreas are definitely a Cold War legacy. Okay. If you see the dividing line between North and South Korea, it originally was the 38th parallel. No longer is the 38th parallel, okay? You had the armistice ceasefire line. Countries are still technically at war, though they're saying now that ended recently, and I'll explain why, okay? But again, it is a big impact there, okay? It definitely is a big impact here with that, okay? So again, 38th parallel is dividing point. You have the communist north, non-communist south, okay? But again, the Korean War was a stalemate, okay? Nobody won it. But Incheon is where Douglas MacArthur landed in order to save South Korea. Because at one time, okay, they pretty much invaded all the way here, okay, North Korean forces. They pushed back, but then Chinese forces aided North Korea, and that's how you got the stalemate line there, okay? So again, okay, it became a stalemate between both countries. Now, the Communist Party still controls North Korea. There are a lot of violations of human rights in North Korea. Okay, Kim Jong-un is the current leader. He's the grandson of the founder, Kim Il-sung, who is called the glorious leader there. Just like the Soviet Union and even portions of China, there are no human rights, no freedom of speech, no freedom of the press, etc. Very controlled society. People are not allowed to go out and do things, okay? It is it is deplorable for where people live. There's been famines before, so again, North Korea has been suffering for decades. And also, North Korea for a long time was seen as the axis of evil by the United States. This goes back to the 1950s, even in the 2000s it was called the axis of evil. North Korea has threatened us many times. However, in recent years, we've seen some changes, though, with North Korea, okay? And this is comparable to President Nixon visiting China and also President Carter interacting with Egypt in order for Egypt to recognize Israel, okay? Like I said, every administration has a big foreign policy thing. You could also compare to President Reagan really interacting with Mikhail Gorbachev, leading to the collapse of the Soviet Union, okay? So that's where it'd be comparable to, okay? But the big event that occurred was in 2018 is when President Trump actually met with Kim Jong-un, okay? That is a big deal because no U.S. president has ever met with the dictator of North Korea. Like I said, it's comparable to President Nixon visiting China, reopening it. It's comparable to President Carter actually interacting with the leader of Egypt so that way they would recognize Israel, okay? It also would be comparable to President Clinton starting talks with North Korea, okay? But you could argue that, President Trump took it further than the way President Clinton did, okay? So again, okay, this is very instrumental, okay? It also is comparable to President Obama actually being the first U.S. president to actually visit Cambodia. Okay, I know it's not talked about a lot, but he actually did, okay? But like I said, every U.S. president has done some huge foreign policy thing that's out of the ordinary, and I just listed, from President Nixon to the present, okay? Like I said, Nixon with China, President Carter with Sadat there in Egypt, okay? President Reagan and President Bush, okay, going there with the Soviet Union, President Clinton starting talks with North Korea, okay, and then of course President Bush there with the war on terror, and then President Obama going to Cambodia, okay? So again, every U.S. president has done it, okay? I want you to think about this. Do you think the geopolitical relationship between North Korea and the United States will change since the last couple of meetings between the two leaders, okay? If you've noticed, okay, I want you to really think about this. Has there been talks of hostility between it, or is it a lot more peaceful than it was, say, even just 4 years ago? So really think about that, okay? And think about how the geopolitical relations can change, okay? No matter how you feel about the president, you have to really look at the geopolitical things. Because look at Cambodia, okay? They really, are starting to actually open up diplomatic relationship with the United States because of President Obama. Okay, so you have to really, think about that. Okay, so you could argue, is this parallel to what President Obama did with Cambodia with President Trump in North Korea? You could compare it, although again, North Korea a little more tensions than say Cambodia. Okay, so go ahead, answer this question, come up with 2 factors as to, do you think the geopolitical relationship will change between the 2 countries? And then stop the video here, and then I'll finish up with South Korea. Okay, welcome back. So this is the last slide here for East Asia, okay? South Korea was able to grow because of state capitalism, but another name for it would be crony capitalism, where they were giving favors to certain companies to help grow South Korea. I will say, after the Korean War, South Korea was a lot poorer than North Korea. But again, over time, South Korea, of course, became a post-industrial society. So state capitalism, where it made policies direct towards favored businesses, but again, another name was crony capitalism. It was very dictatorial in South Korea. It was not as a free society as we know it today. It wasn't until the 1970s, when they started growing economically, they became a democracy. In fact, they even impeached and got rid of the recent prime minister because of corruption, okay? But South Korea is, of course, now, okay, a very open society, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, etc., okay? In fact, my brother-in-law still has family there in South Korea, okay? His parents came from South Korea here to the United States during the 1970s, okay? But if you notice here, North Korea is not as stable when compared to South Korea. You can see here by the map. Clearly, look at that. It's dark as night there when compared to South Korea. Okay. Southeast Asia will be optional, but I'm letting you know now you have all the information for your exam number 4. So make sure you do answer both questions. And again, if you have any questions for me, just let me know. Okay. Talk to you guys soon.